Elias Hale and I were known across New York City as the picture-perfect devoted couple. But on his deathbed, the name he kept murmuring belonged to another woman. "Lila," he breathed, weak and fragile, "I've done right by you and our son my whole life. But her. I owe her. I failed her. Back then, Vivi got pregnant by some deadbeat. If I'd married her, she never would have been disowned by her family. She never would have jumped to her death, lost both her life and her baby. If there's a next life, let me marry her first. Please?" I nodded through my tears. Okay. If I got a second chance, I'd let them have each other. And this time? I'd live for myself. A familiar, tearful voice pulled me sharply back to the present. "Elias, what am I gonna do?" I jolted awake. I was back. Back to the day Vivian Pierce showed up at our door. The girl across from me wore a soft white dress, delicate and fair-featured, the one that got away, the girl Elias had pined after his whole life. 2 pregnancy test slips lay on the table between us. That's right. Vivian and I were both pregnant. In my last life, Elias had agonized over the choice, and in the end, he'd chosen me. But that decision had become the biggest regret of his life. Before I could even process the moment, Elias stood up fast from the seat beside me, and pulled Vivian into his arms, his face tight with concern. "Shoo, Vivi, don't cry. I'll marry you." Then he turned to me, his voice steady and solemn. "I'm sorry, Lila." One look into his eyes, and I knew. He'd been reborn too. In this life, he was going to save his white moonlight from her tragic fate. Fine. I'd let him. Okay. I picked up my own pregnancy test from the table, and tore it to shreds right in front of him. "Elias, our engagement is off. I wish you two a long, happy marriage. All the best." Elias frowned. "Lila Bennett, what are you talking about? This is ridiculous. Marrying Vivi is just a temporary fix. Once she has the baby, I'll divorce her and marry you. It's only a few months. Can't you wait that long?" I stared at the sanctimonious man in front of me, my fists clenching at my sides. "Elias, don't you dare push this on me. I've already stepped aside and let you have her. What gives you the right to keep me on a leash? You're worried about Vivi's reputation, about people talking shit about her. What about me? You think I want people whispering behind my back, having a baby with no father to claim it?" Elias glared at me, his voice cold and sharp. "You've got some nerve saying that. You owe Vivi. You owe her everything." He leaned in, lowering his voice to a harsh whisper. "Let me be clear. I came back from the dead. I remember everything. Last life, you trapped me into marrying you with that baby in your belly. Because of you, Vivi got disowned. She jumped off a building and died. Both her and the baby. You and your kid lived a life of luxury while she rotted in the ground. Don't you feel guilty?" My hands shook with rage. Vivian had gotten knocked up by some random guy who bailed on her. Elias had made his own choice. And somehow Vivian's death was all my fault. When I didn't answer, Elias softened his tone, like he was talking to a stubborn child. "Be reasonable. Let me make this up to Vivi first. Once she has the baby, I won't owe her anything anymore. Then we can get back to our life." I snapped. I reared back and slapped him hard across the face. A bright red handprint bloomed on his pale cheek. He clapped a hand to his face, staring at me in disbelief. "Lila Bennett. You dare hit me?" Vivian leaned in, tears streaming down her face, and brushed her fingers over his cheek. "Elias, does it hurt? I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. I never should have made Lila mad. I'll go. I'll just leave. Even if my dad beats me to death, I won't make you marry me." She turned to leave, wiping her eyes, but Elias caught her by the waist and pulled her back. Vivi, don't go. You didn't make me do anything. I want to marry you. I promise I'll take care of you. Both of you. The baby too. Vivian buried her face in his chest, sobbing like she'd just been saved. I'd had enough of their little love scene. I cut in sharp. Save the waterworks for somewhere else. Don't bring this sad, messy drama into my marital home. Elias lifted his head, scowling at me. Lila, if anyone should leave, it's you. Vivi and I are getting married. This is gonna be our house now. I stared at him for a long, quiet second, then held out my hand. He looked confused. This house? Our families put down $2 million each for it. Give me my $2 million, and I'll walk out that door right now. You, his eyes went wide. How can you be so cold about this? Vivi's only staying here a few months. Once we get married, you'll move back in anyway. I wasn't gonna waste my breath arguing. Either give me the money, or you and Vivian get the hell out. Vivian's eyes welled up again. Don't be mad at him, please. I don't need a fancy house. I'd sleep on the street if it meant I could be with Elias. Elias's gaze softened with pity. He pulled a debit card out of his wallet and hurled it straight at my face. Take the money and get out. The sharp edge of the card sliced my cheek, cold and stinging. I took a deep breath, bent down, and picked it up off the floor. I gave him a thin, bitter smile. We're even, Elias. I wish you two every happiness. I turned and walked out without a single backward glance. I didn't see the way Elias stared after my retreating back, his brow furrowed tight. After a moment, he spoke, his voice low and sure. You're just angry right now, Lila. You'll come around. You're carrying my baby. Who else are you gonna marry? And what about your family's mess? You really think you can fix that without me? I didn't bother answering. I kept walking, flagged down a cab, and headed straight for the hospital. In the back seat, I gripped the debit card so tight my nails dug into my palm. He was right. My family did have a mess waiting for me. My father had poured $50 million into an AI tech startup, convinced it was the next big thing. But he had no clue what he was doing. Every last penny went down the drain, and he was drowning in debt. All our relatives had ghosted us. So my dad had set his sights on the Hales. He drugged me, put me in Elias's bed, and made sure I got pregnant, all to get the Hale family to bail them out. After that, I'd married Elias while pregnant, saved the family company, and spent the rest of my life swallowing my pride and making myself small. And at the end of it all? Elias had blamed me for Vivian's death. Said I'd forced him into marriage, that I'd killed her. Not this time. I wasn't gonna take the fall for anyone. And I wasn't gonna be my family's sacrifice anymore. At the hospital, the doctor asked me 3 separate times. Are you absolutely sure you want to terminate this pregnancy? I nodded, steady and unshakable. Last time, I'd loved that baby with everything I had. When Elias treated me like I was invisible, when my father hounded me for money from the Hales, that baby had been my only reason to keep going. I'd poured my whole life into raising him, turning him into the perfect heir to the Hale fortune. But on Elias's deathbed, our own son had stood by his father and torn me apart. Mom, how could you trap him like that? You killed 2 people. 2 innocent lives. No wonder Dad was always so cold to you. It was all your fault. Every sob story has its share of truth. You're not the victim here. Fine. If he thought I was the villain, I'd give him a villain to hate. This life, I was living for me. I didn't want this son anymore. I checked in for the procedure at my scheduled time. I never expected to run into Elias there, escorting Vivian to her own prenatal appointment. He held her arm so carefully, so gently, like she was something fragile and precious. In my whole last life, Elias had never once come with me to a prenatal checkup. After Vivian died, he'd drowned himself in guilt and whiskey, day after day. When I'd gone into labor with complications, he hadn't shown up at all. I'd signed the papers alone, fought my way back from the brink of death by myself. Elias looked up, and his eyes locked on mine. His face darkened. "What are you doing here?" Then he seemed to remember I was pregnant too. His tone softened, just a little. "Vivi's having some spotting, I brought her in to get checked out. You're fine though, right? Just take it easy and have the baby. Don't worry. Once Vivi has the kid and we get the birth certificate sorted, I'll come get you and our son. Bring you home where you belong." He wrapped an arm around Vivian and walked away without another word. In the split second before he turned, I caught the flash of jealousy and hatred in Vivian's eyes. I smirked to myself and turned to walk toward the operating room. I woke up in a hospital bed, the ache in my lower belly still dull and throbbing. My phone buzzed harshly on the nightstand. It was my father. "Ungrateful little brat. Get your ass home right now." I pushed through the pain, dragged myself out of bed, and went back to my parents' house. The second I walked through the door, an ashtray came flying straight at my head. I didn't duck fast enough. It cracked against my forehead, and warm blood trickled down my temple. My mother ran over, crying. "Your father didn't mean it. How could you make him so angry? You're still pregnant, Lila. If something happens to that baby, what are we gonna do about the company?" My father clutched his chest, purple with rage. "Pregnant? So what? Some other woman already stole her spot. I'm telling you, Lila Bennett. If you don't marry Elias Hale, I'll make your life a living hell." He collapsed back onto the couch, gasping for air. My mother rushed to his side, tears streaming down her face. "Lila, baby, you know your father's heart is bad. Don't upset him like this. If we lose the company, if we lose him, I won't want to live either." Blood blurred my vision. I stood there, cold and still, and said nothing. Last life, they'd done this exact same thing. Threatened, cried, guilt tripped me into doing what they wanted. For my whole life. When I stayed silent too long, they stopped performing. They just stared at me, waiting. My father stepped forward, his voice sharp and desperate. "I planned this for years. I can't lose it all now." Then he dropped to his knees in front of me. "Layla, please. Daddy's begging you. Talk Elias into marrying you. Save the company. Please." My mother dropped to her knees beside him, wiping her eyes. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, my voice was flat. "Fine. I'll get married." They froze, then threw their arms around each other, sobbing with relief. Thank God. The company's saved. I just watched them, my mouth pressed into a thin line. I hadn't finished speaking. I would get married. Just not to the man they thought. I was at a bridal shop trying on wedding dresses when I ran into Elias and Vivian. Vivian stood in a floor-length white lace gown, her small baby bump just visible under the fabric. She blushed and ran over to throw her arms around Elias. "Elias, do I look pretty in this one?" He wrapped an arm around her waist, tapping the tip of her nose playfully. "You're beautiful, Vivi. Everything looks perfect on you." Vivian giggled, swatting his arm. "Stop, you're just being sweet." I didn't care about their little display. I was too busy staring at the dress Vivian was wearing. That was my dress. The one I'd picked out. Custom made by a designer in Italy, hand-stitched, altered specifically to fit a pregnant body. And somehow, it fit Vivian like it was made for her. Vivian noticed me staring. She flinched like a scared rabbit and hid her face against Elias's chest. Elias's face went cold instantly. I let the last hospital thing slide. "What are you doing here, following us?" Vivian's eyes welled up. I know I shouldn't have taken her dress. I'll take it off right now, I promise. She reached for the zipper at her back, but Elias caught her hand. He pulled her close, glaring daggers at me. Lila, you owe her this. Let her have the damn dress. It's not like you're ever gonna wear it anyway. I'm not marrying you. Vivian snuggled into his chest and shot me a smug, triumphant look over his shoulder. I shrugged, completely unbothered. If someone wants my hand-me-downs, she's welcome to them. I flagged down a sales associate. Excuse me? Can I try on the gown in the front window? That one wasn't custom. But it still cost well into 7 figures. Elias's jaw tightened. You're not getting married. Why are you even trying on dresses? Then a look of realization crossed his face, and he scoffed. I get it. You're trying to make me jealous. Trying to punish me. He glanced at the window dress, his eyes dismissive. Lila, let's be real. You can't afford that. Not with the mess your family's in. Stop being childish. He stepped forward and patted my shoulder, like he was humoring a tantruming toddler. Just go home, take care of the baby, and wait for me. I'll come get you soon. He walked out of the shop with Vivian on his arm, smug and self-satisfied. Vivian still sounded worried as they left. Elias, what if she crashes our wedding? Nah, Elias sounded absolutely sure of himself. Her family's company is hanging by a thread. She tries to ruin our big day? I'll put them out of business before the sun sets. Vivian relaxed. Good. Then I can just focus on being your bride. I heard every word. I smiled to myself, cold and sharp. I pulled out my phone and made a call. 30 minutes later, a man walked into the bridal shop. He took one look at me in the gown and raised an eyebrow. I agreed to play groom for your little stunt. I didn't agree to buy you a dress. I stepped forward, grabbed his tie, and tugged him down to my level. This isn't a dress. It's a weapon. Don't you want to see Elias Hale eat his own pride? This'll be worth every penny. He chuckled, then pulled out his black card and handed it to the clerk. Fine. But you better put on a good show. Don't let me down. The wedding day arrived. I showed up at the venue in a white wedding dress of my own. Elias was greeting guests at the door. When he saw me, his face went green. He stormed over and grabbed my arm hard. What the hell are you doing here? You ruined this wedding for Vivi, and I'll destroy your family's company tomorrow. I swear to God. Good. That's exactly what I wanted. I didn't say it out loud. I just stared at him, calm as anything. Vivian, also in a white wedding dress, hurried over and clung to Elias's arm. She looked at me like I was a threat. Elias, the guests are arriving. People are gonna stare. This is embarrassing. She had a point. It was pretty funny. 2 brides, 1 groom, fighting it out at the front door. My parents showed up out of nowhere. When my father saw Vivian, he marched right up and slapped her across the face. You little tramp. You're pregnant with some other guy's kid and you're still chasing after my son-in-law? Get out of here. Vivian held her cheek, tears spilling over. I'm not. Elias stepped in front of her, shielding her from view. His voice was ice cold. Mr. Bennett. Who gave you permission to speak to my wife like that? That baby in her belly? It's mine. He glanced pointedly at my stomach, hidden under the loose fabric of my dress. Your daughter's kid, though? That's the one with no father. That's the bastard. My father shook with rage. You lie. My daughter's baby is yours. Elias let out a cold laugh. Oh, you know that for sure, do you? Were you in the room watching us? Is that how you know? My father clutched his chest, gasping, unable to get a word out. Then he collapsed backward onto the floor. Robert. My mother screamed and dropped to her knees beside him. An ambulance showed up minutes later and rushed him to the hospital. Vivian leaned against Elias's chest, soft and grateful. Thank you for defending me, Elias. Elias rubbed her back, but his eyes were on me, cold and sharp. Why are you still here? He let go of Vivian, stepped close, and lowered his voice so only I could hear. That little scene with your dad? That was a warning. Leave now, and I'll forget this ever happened. I'll still take care of the baby. I'll still bail your family out. But if you keep pushing me? Don't say I didn't warn you. I still said nothing. I just looked at him, completely unfazed. That was what finally made him snap. He waved over the security guards at the door. Get this crazy woman out of here. Now. 2 guards stormed toward me. Then a lazy, amused male voice cut through the chaos. I'd like to see you try. Touch my wife, and you'll regret it. Everyone turned to look. A man in a black tuxedo, exactly the same as Elias's, walked up and slung an arm around my shoulders. Elias's eyes went wide with shock and fury. Julian Kingsley. What the hell are you doing here? His gaze locked on Julian's hand resting on my shoulder, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. When did you two? How long has this been going on? I was very satisfied with Elias's horrified reaction. Julian Kingsley was Elias's biggest rival. They'd hated each other for years, always fighting, always trying to one-up each other. Last life, Julian had gotten into a car crash while he was out of the country on business. He'd died on impact. When Elias heard the news, he'd celebrated all night. Serves him right, always sticking his nose where it doesn't belong. That's what you get for crossing me. Julian Kingsley died without a wife, without a kid. Bloodline ends with him. Pathetic. I'd stood outside the study that night, listening to him laugh, my fists clenched so tight my nails broke skin. I'd hated him so much in that moment. Why couldn't it have been him who died? If Elias had died, I could have taken his money and left. I could have been free. This life, I was free. No one could threaten me, no one could tie me down. But I still wanted to use Julian to stick it to Elias. Just a little. I turned to Julian, soft and sweet, like I was genuinely relieved to see him. Where have you been, honey? I was so scared. They upset my dad so bad he had to go to the hospital, and they were gonna throw me out. Julian laced his fingers through mine, gentle and reassuring. I'm here now, baby. No one's gonna hurt you. Not while I'm around. He turned back to Elias, his voice sharp with disapproval. Hale. I know you've had it out for me for years. But you don't go after a man's family. That's low, even for you. You think you can push my wife around and get away with it? You think I'm just gonna stand here and take it? He pulled me close, ready to walk away. Over his shoulder, he added one last line. Mess with my wife again, Hale? And you'll regret it. I promise you that. Elias was so angry he could barely breathe. Lila Bennett was carrying his baby. When the hell had she become Julian Kingsley's wife? He yelled after our retreating backs. Julian Kingsley. That baby in her belly is mine. You're just a placeholder. You want to raise another man's kid that bad? Julian stopped. He turned around. He looked at Elias, slow and mocking, and smiled. Hale, is my hearing going, or are you losing your mind? 5 minutes ago, you stood there and said Lila's baby was a bastard with no father. Now suddenly it's yours? Which one is it, Hale? Which lie am I supposed to believe? The crowd of guests started murmuring. Wow, high society really is a mess, huh? I thought the Bennett girl was pregnant with the Hale heir, that's why they got engaged. What happened? Guy seemed so put together. Guess he's just another rich playboy. Wait, so which one of them is actually carrying his kid? Elias's face turned beet red. He clenched his fists so tight his knuckles went white. He was trapped. There was no way to talk his way out of this. Mr. and Mrs. Hale looked mortified, caught in the middle of all the gossip. Elias, say something. Tell everyone the truth. Which baby is ours? We can't let the Hale family name be dragged through the mud like this. I stared coldly at the older Hales. Last life, their constant sniping and poison had turned my own son against me. They'd hated my background, hated how my family kept leeching off Hale money. They'd only tolerated me for the sake of their grandson. For decades, they'd nitpicked everything I did. And in the end? They'd blamed me for Elias's misery, for Vivian's death. Fine. This time, I'd give them exactly what they said they wanted. Vivian as their daughter-in-law. I cleared my throat, loud enough for everyone to hear. Everyone, you don't have to guess. Isn't it obvious? Mr. Hale is marrying Vivian today. So of course Vivian's baby is his. And me? I paused, letting the silence hang. Then I smiled, calm and clear. I'm not pregnant. Never was. The crowd erupted. Elias's face went black with rage. He marched over, grabbed my wrist so tight it hurt, and hissed through his teeth. Lila Bennett, what the hell are you saying? You think I don't know you're pregnant? I pulled my hand free, sharp and cold. Oh, you know, do you? Were you watching me and my husband too? Is that your thing? I pressed myself close to Julian's side, playing up the scared wife act. Honey, this creep is so weird. Is he always spying on people? How else would he know if I'm pregnant or not? I'm scared. He's freaking me out. Julian patted my hand gently. Hey, it's okay. I'm right here. He looked at Elias, his eyes gone cold. Hale. I've let a lot slide. But you keep this up? You keep harassing my wife, spreading lies about her? My lawyers will be in touch. You'll hear from us. Elias stood there, seething, staring at us like he wanted to tear us apart. Vivian tugged on his sleeve, her eyes wet. Elias, what about the wedding? Do we still? Elias snapped out of it. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, his voice soft again. Of course we do. Vivian hugged him tight, relieved. I smiled, cold and sharp. Well then. Happy wedding day, Mr. and Mrs. Hale. Wishing you both a lifetime of wedded bliss. You take good care of your wife and that baby, Mr. Hale. Don't let them down, okay? I turned and walked away on Julian's arm, and I didn't look back. I didn't see the way Elias stared after me, his eyes dark and unreadable. Mr. and Mrs. Hale both sighed in huge relief. Thank God our boy saw through that woman. Can you imagine if she'd married into this family? We would have lost everything. No grandson, and her family leeching off us forever. They turned to Vivian's belly, warm and smiling. Now you, sweetheart. You give us a nice healthy grandson, okay? Vivian blushed and nodded. Then she glanced up at Elias. He was still staring at the door Lila had walked through, like he was lost in thought. She bit her lip. Elias? You okay? Elias blinked. He looked down at her and forced a small smile. I'm fine. Once his parents were out of earshot, Vivian spoke softly, gentle and understanding. She's just mad, Elias. She's doing all this to get back at you. She loves you too much to really leave. Once I have the baby and everything's official, I'll divorce you. Then you two can be a family again. The three of you. Elias cupped her face, his voice full of pity. Vivi, you're too good for this world. Too sweet. It breaks my heart. So, Vivian smiled playfully up at him. Does that mean you'll stay with me these next few months? Let me feel what it's like to be loved. Elias laughed and nodded. Then he glanced back toward the entrance one more time. Whatever. She can be mad a little longer. Her family's whole future is riding on me. She's not gonna go anywhere. Once the baby's here, I'll throw her family some more money, say I'm sorry, and she'll come crawling back with our son. Just like always. He relaxed, a smug, confident smile tugging at his mouth. He turned and walked back into the wedding reception. Julian and I left the venue and stopped at a boutique to change out of the wedding dress. Julian lounged on the couch, legs crossed, watching me walk out of the fitting room. Where's the dress? I jerked my chin toward the back. Threw it away. He let out a low whistle. 7-figure dress, just tossed like that? Not gonna save it for your real wedding? I shook my head. This life, I was living for me. I wasn't gonna trap myself in another marriage. I held out my hand to him. He raised an eyebrow, amused, and laced his fingers through mine. I swatted his hand away. Not that. I rolled my eyes. I need $5 million. Julian paused, then smirked. That little show back there wasn't worth $5 million. I didn't argue. I pulled 2 things out of my bag and set them on the table in front of him. One was my medical record from the termination. The other was a stack of photos. The photos showed Vivian walking into a hotel with her boyfriend, wrapped up in each other. Find the guy in these photos. Bring him to the hospital when Vivian gives birth. Bring my medical records too. Drop the whole truth on Elias. Give him the surprise of his life. I think that surprise is worth $5 million. Don't you? Julian's lips curled into a slow, knowing smile. A minute later, he pulled out his checkbook, signed it, and slid it across the table to me. I looked at the number and smiled, satisfied. I folded the check carefully, tucked it into my bag, and stood up to leave. Well. See you around, Julian. He watched me walk away, his brow furrowed just a little. Where are you going? I waved a hand over my shoulder. Away. Somewhere warm. Somewhere far from here. What about your parents? You just gonna leave 'em? I laughed, sharp and bitter. Parents who throw their own daughter to the wolves don't deserve my sympathy. They can rot for all I care. That night, I booked a one-way flight out of the country. $7 million in my pocket, and a whole new life waiting for me. Elias and Vivian's wedding went off without a hitch. Back in the bridal suite that night, the shower ran in the bathroom. Elias sat on the edge of the bed, yanking at his tie, restless and irritable. Same room. Same bed. Different bride. He couldn't stop thinking about the first night of his last life. He'd gotten the call that Vivian had jumped. He'd sat in this exact room all night, numb. Lila had stayed up with him. She hadn't said much. Just sat there, quiet, keeping him company. When the sun came up, she'd finally spoken, soft and gentle. Come to bed. You need to rest. That was when he'd snapped. He'd shoved her hard, screaming. How can you sleep? She's dead. A person is dead. If I'd married her, she'd still be alive. This is all your fault. You trapped me with that baby. You killed her. Lila hadn't yelled back. She just looked at him, calm and steady. Vivian's death isn't my fault. You chose who to marry. I told you I was pregnant, but you made the final call. If anyone killed her, it was you. He'd had nothing to say to that. But from that day on, he'd hated her. Blaming her made the guilt easier to bear. He'd shut her out for the rest of their lives. Barely even looked at his own son. His parents had picked on her constantly, and turned the boy against her. Her own parents had used her like a personal ATM, always begging for more money from the Hales. She'd spent her whole life being pushed around, ignored, taken for granted. He'd done that to her. He owed her too, in his own way. Elias sighed quietly. Once the divorce with Vivian was final, he'd make it up to Lila. He'd do better. A soft, flowery scent drifted over from behind him. Two small, warm arms wrapped around his waist. Elias went rigid. He turned to see Vivian, still damp from the shower, standing behind him. "Elias," she whispered, blushing. "Let's go to bed." Elias pried her hands off him and stood up fast. I'm gonna sleep in the guest room." He practically ran out of the bedroom. Vivian sat on the bed, biting her lip, her eyes dark with resentment. Then she doubled over, clutching her stomach, and cried out. "Elias. It hurts, my stomach, the baby." Elias froze mid-step. He ran right back and gathered her into his arms. "Vivi? What's wrong? Is the baby okay?" Vivian pressed his hand to her belly, soft and tearful. "Feel? The baby's moving. He's being fussy tonight." Elias rested his hand on her stomach, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. He wondered if his own son kicked like that in Lila's belly. Maybe he should go check on her. Soon. Elias bought a bunch of fancy prenatal vitamins and supplements, and drove out to the Bennett house. Things had gotten ugly at the wedding, but the second Elias mentioned investing $10 million into Bennett Enterprises, Mr. Bennett lit up like a Christmas tree. Come in, come in. Honey, get Elias some tea." Mrs. Bennett hurried over with a cup, all smiles. Elias took a slow sip, glancing around the house. "Where's Lila?" Mr. Bennett sighed, dramatic and put upon. "That girl? Still mad at us. Hasn't been home in weeks." Elias's stomach dropped. A cold feeling crept up his spine. "Where is she, then?" Mr. Bennett waved a hand, like it was no big deal. "Ah, she's crashing at some friend's place, I'm sure. She'll come around. She always does. We only have the one daughter. She can't stay mad forever. She'll come home when she's ready." Elias relaxed a little. Before he left, he gave the Bennetts one last warning. "Make sure she takes care of that baby. Once Vivian has hers, I'll come get Lila and our son. Bring em home where they belong. And the $40 million I promised you? You'll get every penny. Don't worry." Mr. Bennett could barely contain his grin. As soon as Elias was gone, his smile dropped. He snapped at his wife. "Quit standing there. Call Lila. Now." Mrs. Bennett huffed. "She blocked both our numbers. How am I supposed to call her?" Mr. Bennett sighed. "Fine. We'll wait. She'll come crawling back. I know she will." Elias left the Bennett house feeling reassured. Months flew by. The day Vivian went into labor finally arrived. Everyone waited outside the delivery room, anxious and pacing. Hours later, a nurse walked out holding a tiny swaddled baby. "Who's here for Vivian Pierce? Congratulations. You have a healthy baby boy." Mr. and Mrs. Hale crowded around, cooing over the baby, over the moon. "Finally. We have a grandson." Elias let out a huge breath of relief. This time, Vivian had the baby. Mother and son were both alive and well. The weight he'd carried for a lifetime was finally gone. He didn't owe Vivian anything anymore. Now he could go make things right with Lila. Just as the whole Hale family was celebrating, a voice cut through the joy. "Who said that's your grandson?" Everyone turned. Julian Kingsley stood there, with a man he'd brought along beside him. Elias stepped forward, scowling. "What are you doing here, Kingsley?" Julian smiled, slow and amused. "What do you think? Brought the baby's real dad here to meet his son." He nodded at the baby in Mrs. Hale's arms. "Mrs. Hale, you might want to hand that baby over. Wrong, Grandpa, I'm afraid. The man Julian had brought stepped forward and reached for the baby. Mrs. Hale held on tight. That's a lie. This is my grandson. Help. Someone help. This man is trying to steal my grandbaby. People gathered around, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Hale glared at the two men. Someone call the police. These two are dangerous. A few bystanders pulled out their phones. Then the doors slid open, and Vivian was wheeled out of the delivery room. When she saw the man standing there, she froze. Then she gasped. Kyle. What are you doing here? The man, Kyle, smiled, cold and sharp. Vivian, you have my baby behind my back, and you let another man claim him as his own? That's not right. Vivian's voice cracked with anger. Kyle Carter, you have some nerve. You found out I was pregnant and you bailed. You left me. Don't you dare stand there and judge me. If Elias hadn't saved me, my family would have thrown me out on the street. I would have had nothing. The people with their phones out slowly lowered them. Oh. So that's how it was. Mrs. Hale stared, stunned. So this baby isn't ours? It's not Elias's? She looked at her son, desperate for him to say it wasn't true. When Elias nodded, her hands went limp. The baby fell to the floor, wailing. Vivian pushed herself off the gurney, screaming, and crawled over to the baby. Mommy's here, baby, I'm here. It's okay. Elias stared down at the woman and child on the floor, cold and distant. Mom, it's true. The baby isn't mine. Vivian's family was gonna disown her. I married her to give the baby a name. To protect her. Lila's baby? That's my real son. That's the Hale heir. Mrs. Hale covered her face and sobbed. You idiot. How could you throw away your own son like that? Elias patted her back, trying to calm her down. Mom, stop crying. We still have a grandson. Lila's due any day now. You'll meet him soon. I promise. A flicker of hope lit up her tear-streaked face. Then Julian stepped forward, twirling a piece of paper between his fingers. Sorry to burst your bubble, Hale. But you're not gonna be a dad. Not to that one, anyway. Elias stared at the paper in Julian's hand. When he read the words printed on it, his pupils blew wide. He snatched it out of Julian's hand. It was Lila's medical record. Proof of the termination. Dated months ago. The day he'd run into her at the hospital. She hadn't been there for a checkup. She'd been there to get rid of the baby. How could she? How dare she kill their son? His eyes burned. His whole body shook. Mrs. Hale leaned over to see what it said. One look, and she fainted dead away. Julian patted Elias on the shoulder, grinning. Congrats, Hale. Got yourself a wife, and a free bonus son that isn't even yours. Quite the double celebration, if you ask me. He laughed, loud and genuine, and walked away satisfied. Elias crumpled the paper in his fist, his face twisted with rage. Vivian crawled over to him, baby in her arms, sobbing. Elias, it's okay. You still have me. My son can be your son. We can be a family. The three of us. Elias looked down at her tear-streaked face. And then he kicked her hard in the stomach. Get away from me. You disgust me. I didn't sign up to raise another man's kid. Vivian fell backward, holding the baby tight, crying helplessly on the floor. The hallway echoed with the sound of her screams and the baby's wails. Elias refused to believe it. Refused to believe Lila had really done it. He ran out to his car and drove straight to the Bennett house. Mr. and Mrs. Bennett were sitting at the table eating dinner when he burst through the door. Where is she? Where's Lila? Elias grabbed Mr. Bennet by the collar of his shirt. Mr. Bennet went pale with fear. She's staying with a friend. Which friend? Elias roared. Mr. Bennet stammered, unable to get a word out. Elias knew. They'd been lying to him this whole time. He shoved Mr. Bennet backward hard, and slammed the termination papers down on the table. Lila got rid of my baby months ago. And you two have been playing me for a fool. Every cent I invested in your company? I'm pulling it all. Tomorrow, Bennet Enterprises is gone. You're finished. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Mr. and Mrs. Bennet collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. I was laying on a beach somewhere warm, sun on my skin, when Julian called. He told me everything that had happened back home. Bennet Enterprises was bankrupt. When Elias found out the truth about the abortion, he destroyed the company out of rage. My parents had lost everything overnight. They were living on the streets now, begging for change. My dad on a cardboard mat, my mom kneeling beside him with a portable speaker playing sad music, just trying to scrape up a few dollars from strangers. And the other news? It shocked even me. Elias was dead. He'd hired private investigators to track me down. At the same time, he'd had lawyers filing for divorce. Vivian had refused to sign. Begged and pleaded, again and again. When she realized he'd never take her back, she snapped. She got in her car and ran him down. Killed him instantly. Then she drove the car straight off a cliff into the ocean. When they pulled the car out of the water, there were 2 bodies inside. Vivian and her baby boy, barely a month old. I sighed quietly. What a waste. If Elias had just tried to be happy with Vivian and the kid, none of this would have happened. Then again, at least they're all together now. The 3 of them. Some kind of messed up happy ending, I guess. Elias's parents hadn't taken it well. They'd both fallen apart, ended up in the hospital. No grandson. No son. Nothing left. I listened to Julian list off all the fates, and closed my eyes, tilting my face up toward the sun. What a beautiful day. Right before he hung up, Julian added one last thing. Lila? I kept your wedding dress. The 7-figure one. You ever want to get married for real? You know where to find me. I paused. Then I glanced over at the 2 gorgeous male masseurs beside me, working the knots out of my shoulders. I laughed, soft and easy. Nah. I'm good. After all, my life was just getting started.